what we're seeing is even, I think it was yesterday, the BIS came out with a unified ledger model where there's a layer to interconnect and interoperate different jurisdictions. Tokenized money or CBDC can flow between this layer, and then the settlement and acceptance can happen on both ends. So it is a new form of payment rail. It's a new model that we haven't had before, but we need to work on it and see where it goes.
Hello, everyone. Is Quant the next era of Treasury for digital money? That's a bold statement to make. And how about this? Is Quant already working with its competition? Because let's face it, people do point out the whole thing about their competition. Let's answer these questions with research. Smash a like if you haven't done so already. Consider sticking to the end of the outline if you choose to do so. There are chapters. Let's jump into the material. So first thing I'm going to show you is this right here. And basically, it's from LinkedIn, but man, it pounds home everything. Absolutely everything. Nice way to kick it off on today's outline. As you can see right here, something worth definitely pointing out is this particular person, who is Tim Bailey. Now, what does he have to share with us all in regards to all of this? Well, he states that he's excited to announce the integration of Stasis/Yours, Euro-backed Yours stablecoin, onto the Universal Digital Payments Network. If you guys seen my stellar outline, I got really into the weeds about the significance of that. But for this outline, he goes on to mention that this follows the successful proof of concept conducted by SC Ventures, by Standard Chartered, and also Deutsche Bank. But again, what do you see? Well, real-time digital transactions between USDC and, of course, your stablecoins. Their collaboration with leading financial institutions and digital currency providers is redefining the future of financial infrastructure. And plain as day, you see all these references in regards to UDPN. Now, I want you guys to also understand, when we get more into this, it's these concepts of the UDPN, it's these concepts about the competition, and where does Quant come into the mix? Well, as I get more into it, I'll take you to this next particular page, because I think all of this is obviously worth pointing out, but more importantly is seeing some other particular ones that people have said is Quant's competition. But are they really truly their competition? Or is Quant the enabler to get the job done for even further interoperability, as the saying goes? This time, let's take a look at SIX Digital Exchange, because like they posted 12 hours ago, they're delighted to announce that SDX's Web3 crypto custody has been approved by SIX Exchange regulation as a custodian for crypto asset-based exchange-traded products, ETPs, according to the SIX listing rules for ETPs. The recognition marks a significant milestone in the digital transformation of financial markets and reinforces SIX's as well as STX's role as trusted leaders in the crypto market infrastructure space. Now, what's also interesting, as we get more into it, it says, as institutional adoption continues to rise, trust, robust protection, and regulation are more critical than ever. And in recognition, alongside stringent requirements under Swiss financial market laws, well, you have the whole thing of resiliency and, of course, regulatory compliance. But it's interesting to see some of these postings, and more importantly, is to understand the position of some of these particular companies. As I take you over to SDX.com, standards are at the top of their priority. How so? Well, literally says it. Highest operational security standards. As part of SIX, one of Europe's leading financial market infrastructure providers, they adhere to the highest operation and security standards. So we get further into the outline, I'll put more emphasis on ISO TC 307, the Quant network standard, moving forward. As I take you to the next part of SIX Digital Exchange, front row center, you see the significance of one of their Web3 services. Plain as day, it says institutional crypto trading. powered by DLT Finance. That is another thing I want you to pay attention to moving forward, because we're going to get into the topic of not DLTs, but DLNs. As I take you to the next page, also posted on LinkedIn, interoperability is essential for advancing blockchain technology adoption. And of course, they had this chat with Marco Kessler. He is the head digital securities over at SDX. And more importantly, it's bridging traditional and digital infrastructures into facilitating access across tokenization and those platforms, right? So as I take you to the next part, they did a posting on X. This was last summer, June 20th to be exact. And it said then that the Swiss National Bank announced a continuation of the Helvetia pilot. I covered that in the past as well. But it's the whole thing of what they're achieving or looking to achieve over the next 2 years. This initiative focuses on settling tokenized securities in Swiss francs and the whole thing of wholesale central bank digital currencies being involved. We already understand the Quant connection, but how do we even connect something like this? Well, understand this. When you have transactions that are settled in the safest form of money, which is what they think is central bank money, you have to keep in mind where Quant comes into the mix because, again, the internet of trust. We understand the value, but do you have the trust? And more importantly, how would participants adopt on-chain wholesale CBDCs with basically settlement? Well, as I got further into it, I saw another posting by them, and back to that whole thing about joining Marco Kessler. But what is important for all of us moving forward is how you see that he was part of an engaging panel on the discussion of what? Unified programmable platform for multiple forms of digital money and even digital assets. And top of the list, who you see? Gilbert Verdian, CEO of Quant Network, front row center. Interesting to see that. And more importantly, this quote, a unified programmable platform for multiple forms of digital money and digital assets. Do we have a viable objective? Yeah, you do. You work with the enablers. You even work with your quote unquote competition. As I take you further down the rabbit hole of why this is important, shout out to Greg Lunt. People from the Link community are going to post this. I'm technically part of the Link community. I always put out this disclaimer because I'm not trying to create FUD. I'm always rooting for everybody's success, even I myself who hold Link. But I'm more bullish on QNT, and somebody from Link is going to point out, well, SDX uses CCIP for interoperability, but again, this reference to that video. And like it says, quote, we established interoperability a couple years ago. And here's the problem, and Greg's right. CCIP launched July 2023. Wake up, it's QNT. It always has been. And that's one thing I want to point out to everybody, even those who are complaining about certain people not paying attention to the what? The competitors. And it's okay. We should always look at different things. But with that said, I'm going to play this. 16 seconds. And here we go.
We at SDX have established already a couple of years ago interoperability between the traditional infrastructure and the new infrastructure to allow for our members to reach the whole market and not only a fraction of it, which is now active in the digital asset space.
All right, so you see what's going on with that statement plain as day, and that adds up as well. People just need to get further into it, to say the least. So take you to the next part of why this is important. I want you guys to understand why I share a lot of these key things with you. Here's another particular link, no pun intended, from SDX. And as you see right here, it mentions that SDX, the world's leading exchange for digital assets, well, they have the whole thing of some of these key things about being the world's first fully regulated stock exchange for securities depository. Interesting. How many times did we see that? You know, Larry Fink pointed out that we would see the tokenization of stocks, securities, so on and so forth. So take you more down this rabbit hole and why it's important. This reference from CoinDesk dating back to 2018 pounds home everything even right now. IBM and FX giant CLS team up to launch blockchain app store for banks. And of course, as you can see here, it's basically the offspring of bank-owned currency trading utility and enterprise software giant IBM. I showed you guys in a video a while back in regards to IBM and Quant and Stellar and Hedera, but again, something that's going to get brought up is Hyperledger. Well, as you can see, plain as day, Ledger Connect itself runs partly on a permission blockchain based on IBM's blockchain platform, which in turn was built on Hyperledger Fabric, and all the apps currently in the store are Hyperledger based. However, the founders are open to other enterprise blockchain solutions, making use of the App Store. Think about that for a second. And more importantly, well, think about how Quant aged well with the whole topic of R3. And shout out to XDC as well, right? But we are not averse to supporting other Ledger implementations, whether it's R3 Corda, whether it's Quorum, provided the tech, so on and so forth. But again, they are not averse to supporting other Ledger implementations. So been there, done that. As I take it down to the next part, interesting to see it all, because sometimes people want to see 6 Digital Exchange and some of the other quote-unquote competition mention anything specific about QNT, Quant, etc., etc. What do you think it will take for blockchain interoperability? Read our review here. And they give you guys some options. Mindset change, tech advance like QNT, where it's not needed. I mean, you know, there's cases of how do you say Quant with a, without saying Quant. Shout out to Channing, brother Channing. But this part where it says here, it literally says QNT. You know, it says it. That's a difference. That's worth pointing out. And as I take it to the next part, they say it again. It just keeps getting better and better. And what do you see here? To become architects of the future, we must first acknowledge that we are playing a fundamentally different competitive game with new rules compared to the one we played in the past. If anything, they're going from playing checkers to literally playing chess. And what do you see? They only mentioned 2. They mentioned BTC and QNT. They could have mentioned all the other projects in the whole world. But to mention that, definitely worth playing or paying attention to. All right, taking to the next part. What do you also see here? 6 Digital Exchange, Banque de France, oui, oui, will collaborate with the BIS on an experiment using wholesale CBDC for cross-border settlement on a DLT platform. Project Shura is supported by 6 Digital Exchange, Credit Suisse, and UCR3, right? And we know that Banque de France is the oversight of the BIS. Taking down to the next part, OMFIF, interesting to see them posted again. Because if you see my Stellar outline over a week ago in regards to OMFIF choosing a collaboration of Stellar and also R3, well, this kind of pounds that home even that much more because other market participants will recognize the Quant network product, as in the Overledger. We are excited to share that our first session on the Digital Money Summit 2024 will be looking at the Unified Ledger, a quantum leap for cross-border payments. Funny how we have the terminology. How can we achieve a seamless integration of the emergence of overlapping solutions? And what do we see plain as day even here? You see RLN, UDPN, Project Icebreaker, Parsher. Says how they all come into the existing cross-border payment landscape. You know, what are the technical challenges? What ones could be promising more functions, the scalability? But interesting to see the speakers, and more importantly, Nick Harrigan, head of innovation at Swift, Tom Mutton, director of fintech at the Bank of England. We know the whole thing of Bank of England and obviously the BIS and obviously also the whole thing of Quant Network. But more importantly, even JPMorgan. And if you haven't seen my JPMorgan Quant connector outlines, take a look at those. They're non-time sensitive. You see these guys in the picture, and it's all there, plain as day. Been there, done that, right? So interesting to see some of this, but more importantly, interesting to see even the Quant network post this because, well, from the headlines, the last word, and from Jamie Dimon, oh boy. Quote, we are probably one of the bigger users of blockchain, and actual user, like a real user. It's a great way to share data. And who posts this? Quant Network, with their new slogan, the foundation of digital finance. They have two slogans, the foundation for building on blockchain, and now this one. Our patented technology makes blockchain simple, trusted, and future-proof. Think about it for a moment. If there was any doubt at all that, Onyx, I should say Onyx, but, the whole thing of Quant Network and, for example, JPMorgan wasn't a thing, then, maybe Quant Network wouldn't want to post this on their site. Just throwing that out there. And, of course, the pound at home, shout out to Sebastian. He says, we always knew Gilbert was a JP City boy. He posted this, I think, yesterday. What do you see? Gilbert Verdian, great city event on the future of Treasury. And this is something I want to pound home with you guys. And of course, Gilbert mentions, which we believe will be tokenized. So think about the terminology, everybody, and think about my statements in regards to Quant being the next era of Treasury for digital money. Think about that. There's the U.S. Treasury. We're entering into this whole digital financial revolution, if you will. Web 3, the fourth industrial revolution. You get the gist. But it's all going to be tokenized. So he thanks the opportunity in regards to David Cunningham to be present and part of an amazing event. And what do you see? He even, this guy, David Cunningham, recognizes Gilbert. Superb presentation, sir. Great to see you. Thanks for making the time to share your view on the future and how you're building it. Yeah, respect is not given, it is earned. And if anything, then it is given, right? Anyway, and of course, there's that reference once again. So taking the next part, this is actually from Martin Hargreaves. In short, we at Quant predict that by 2024, we're in 2024, the world in terms of connectivity will be a very different place from the world we see today. We will be in a world where DLNs, think about that, DLN means digital ledger network, not just digital ledger technology, right? The networks. So where DLNs are mainstream in a world which will offer huge benefits to governments, companies, and individuals alike. What else do we have? Well, it's what he also posted. Quant's main predictions. Focus shifts from technology to business, from DLTs to DLNs. Yeah. Again, this all makes sense. Growing impact of regulation and governance on commercialization of DLT, rise of well-governed DLNs, growth and implementation and adoption of national and regional DLNs, acceleration of the growth of tokenized assets on managed DLNs. Again, this is why I'm sharing all this stuff with you. Whether it's 6 Digital Exchange, UDPN, even Finextra, and I'll get into a little bit of that here in a bit. But for mainstream adoption, cryptocurrency will be marginalized by a move towards fiat-backed tokenized money enabled by DLNs. This is why Quant Network doesn't necessarily want to come out and say, yeah, we are a cryptocurrency. Because the way they look at it is they are tokenized money from traditional money. And if anything, taking it even further from there, as we saw in the outline in regards to even AI and other things. All right, we mentioned the whole thing of UDPN, Universal Digital Payments Network. And look what it says here, interoperable payment infrastructure for the digital currencies of course, tomorrow. There's a whole outline of this in this particular white paper from them. But as I got more into it, it says, despite the surge in interest, there is no agreed messaging standard across digital currencies such as ISO 222 for digital payments, which threatens to hinder the adoption of stablecoins, CBDCs, incumbent legacy infrastructure aside. The challenge of interoperability between different digital currency protocols is the current most significant hurdle facing development of digital currencies globally. Scalable and universal interoperability will be key to enabling the efficient movement of digital currencies between legacy payment infrastructure and even some of the ones in regards to evolving digital currency systems. Emphasis on interoperability. As I take you to the next part, what about LACchain? Rise of regional DLNs. Again, back to this focus on DLNs. And what does it say? It says the most advanced example of a regional DLN is currently LACchain. All right, that's Quant's baby, and you better believe it. As we get further into it, all right, because I'm referencing this. You know, I get it. I've been getting some more requests to reference the competition. Notably, the UDPN is a permission network with a limited membership base. The true innovation, though, is found in a capacity to penetrate permissionless networks and combine traditional and decentralized components on a single platform. Here's the key thing, everybody. UDPN is permissioned, okay? As we know with Quant, it's permissioned and permissionless. And how so? Won't get into this super deep. It goes pages and pages and pages. But here's the thing. Quant Network's Overledger OS and Quant Network integrate permission and permissionless networks. Permission networks, as we know, those are networks that have limited decentralization, are typically used for business and enterprise purposes. Network administrators control who can join, view data, participate in the consensus process, so on and so forth. Permission networks may be preferred when data privacy and confidentiality are important. I mean, don't get me wrong, UDPN has their reasons, but permissionless networks, these networks are open and unrestricted, allowing anyone with an internet connection to participate. There are no barriers to entry, but there is also no authority over who can access the network. Say what you want, Quant's API everything, but you can appreciate that they have their own standard to talk to everything or build upon that with ISO TC307. So at the end of the day, Quant Network's tokenization technology allows for interoperability between permission and permissionless blockchains, and this interoperability is designed to maintain privacy and compliance without overheads. And of course, the whole reference to even some of the other things, like interoperability between multiple permissionless networks and 5 enterprise blockchain platforms. Some of the supported permissionless blockchains include R3 Corda, Hyperledger Fabric, JPMorgan, like you saw again, even Ethereum and Ripple. Been there, done that. All right, what else do we have and why it's important? Well, if you were to go over to this publication for July of 2023, Quant contributes CBDC expertise to who? Finaxtra's Future of Payments report. Again, the competition. You know, and more importantly, when we get down into it, what does this say in regards to why we need a CBDC anyway? Fair question. Many of us are very satisfied with the real-time payments and internet banking offerings already available. But the introduction of many banking or open banking in recent years has led to the creation of even more convenient payment options. But this overlooks the fact a key responsibility of any central bank is to make central bank money useful and accessible to citizens. Cash alone is now struggling to fulfill this mandate. Back to the mandate. Think about it. Tie that into ISO 222 and then understand that ISO TC307 is the orchestrator of, let's face it, the mandates, right? So as I get more into this, I want you guys to understand something else, and that is this. It's the focus. If we're going to talk about UDPN, we got to recognize the elephant in the room, and that is the focus and is comparing like the tech, basically speaking. Something I want to point out to you guys in regards to some of my notes, there are key differences in regards to UDPN and Quant Network. And some people, won't mention the guy's name, all right, until he's cool with it. There's a particular individual who knows a heck of a lot about Quant. And he basically believes that UDPN is Quant. That sounds interesting, okay? But until we get that confirmation, there are key differences. Here are my notes. While both networks are based on DLT technology, they have distinct characteristics. How so? Well, it's a consortium structure. UDPN is a consortium-based network, meaning it's basically governed by a group of participating institutions. Quant Network, on the other hand, is a more decentralized network and, of course, has its native token of QNT, which is basically used for the fees to use, for example, for the subscription of the Overledger. but that incentivizes, of course, participation. Focus, though, is UDPN primarily focuses on interoperability between financial institutions, enabling seamless exchange of information and, of course, assets. Quant Network aims to provide a broader platform for various DLT-based applications, including supply chain management, identity verification, and tokenization. Both networks utilize different underlying tech, but UDPN is based on a modified version, of course, of Hyperledger Fabric. True. Quant Network employs its own proprietary blockchain tech, which sits over everything. In summary, worth to point out on both of them. Now let me take you over to this, because I want to give you guys some examples real quick before we end this outline in regards to standards. All right? So here's a great example. Cyprus International Institute of Management. Cyprus Blockchain Tech joins ISO TC 307 as a participating member. Definitely worth pointing out. And of course, all their connections, because if you understand some of this, well, you'll understand that it's all about like the aim, right? And what they're trying to do. So of course you see them working with basically Quant standard of ISO TC 307, definitely worth pointing out. And you can see countless other examples. This is why I'm bringing it to you. This is from assets.cfassets.net. Dr. Bronwyn Evans is a chief executive officer at the Standards Australia. And they recognize, of course, ISO TC 307. I would hope so. I mean, that's Australia. But again, the point is seeing some of this because, like it says, plain as day, in this report for the roadmap of blockchain standards, you see plain as day that Australia recognizes the need, and they also understand prioritizing the order of standards development activities and how it could basically, bring you to the whole thing of other forms of DLT, but again, the establishment and understanding of standards moving forward. I know I say that a lot, but again, she recognizes it. All right. How about another example? Well, as you can see also right here, if you were to go to globalcustodian.com, published a couple months ago in August, it's an effort in respect to tokenization and how Token Bridge can either leverage or influence standardization. And here's another thing that's really interesting. And some of you guys ask, why is Quant on Ethereum? Why is it in ERC20 token? Well, it says, although blockchain technology and its application is in its infancy, a number of standards already exist and are in progress. Standardization is introduced through community efforts such as ISO. The Ethereum community, which approves ERCs, are more akin to standard templates for smart contracts and industry collaborations or organizations. Token Bridge aims to follow the influence of standardization. Again, understand why Gilbert selected, for example, Ethereum at the time. It wasn't necessarily about the speed of the token, of course not. It's understanding that it was just used as a key. And that's the way everybody should look at this moving forward. There's, of course, benefits of standardization, but again, how many times do you see the working groups? How many times do you see the relevance of TC 307? And of course, look at this. Liaisons. You have, all these things in regards to DLT and carbon credits, security, privacy, and identity for blockchain and DLT, the foundations, the advisory groups, the foundations, smart contracts, governance, use case, interoperability, obviously, and of course, fungible tokens. So that's all there. As I take you to the next part, here's another one from World Standards Cooperation. What do you see on the far left? Digital currency fintech. Mentions blockchain distributed ledger technologies, but ISO TC 307, absolutely. And as you see a little bit more as we get into this, I'm going to take you to this particular area and jump to this page. This time, Institute of Standardization of Montenegro. What do you see in regards to all this? March 26, 2024. Guidebook on the use of smart contracts and contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. Who's the originator? ISO. Who's the owner? ISO TC 307. Basically saying who's the owner is Quant. Yeah, for Montenegro. Okay, so my key thing is moving forward, I want you guys to understand that it's about standards. It always will be. You don't see necessarily all of these crazy ISO standards with the other competitors. Think about that. All right, standards are where it's at. No disrespect to those other ones, they can have their own standards, but ISO has been an established committee for decades. So, do we have any written evidence? Think about this for a second. Do we have any written evidence in regards to submissions to support the hypothesis of TC 307? And the answer is yes. We have from committees.parliament.uk written evidence submitted by the British Standards Institution. And it says, plain as day, that the BSI is responding to an inquiry with evidence provided by committee experts. The BSI provides the infrastructure for over 13,000 experts who are the voice of UK economic and social interests to be influential in the International Standards Organization. BSI's experts are from industry and government, and many of them have extensive international experience at the strategic and tactical levels across the full spectrum of trust operations and risk mitigation. Again, back to the whole thing of trust. They include advisors to UK and other governments, the EU and international bodies such as UNHC, the World Bank, and even Interpol. But more importantly, what do you see plain as day right here? You see that in addition to developing standards that aid interoperability, reuse, and best practice, BSI committees provide a valuable vehicle for experts to work together, share knowledge, and further understanding nationally and internationally. That is huge because, again, understanding how we can harness digital money. This is why I'm bringing this to you guys, because I want you guys to understand that Quant is so much bigger than most people realize. And for the ones that don't realize it, they'll just point out that it's just an ERC20 token. That's just a key to a whole suite of products. All right, how about this? What about Greece? Here's another example. Back to 2017, Greece, yeah. Blockchain technology is set to grow further with international standards in the pipeline. Any reference to 307? Yeah, boom, right there. Reference to ISO TC 307. You don't see this. People want to come after me and say I don't reference the competition. Give me a break. All right, how about this? United States Department of Treasury. We know all about this. Department of Treasury is the National Treasury and Finance Department of the federal government of the United States, where it serves as an executive department. Been there, done that. But the department oversees the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and of course the U.S. Mint. Think about everything that's been presented to you today, tonight, wherever you're at. Doesn't Quant stand out as being, basically speaking, the what? Next era of treasury for digital money? I think it does. And more importantly, a little bit more about some of these references. Quant said a while back that they're behind the window of a thing in which they look back at Finaxtra and the Future of Payments report. Why is Quant highlighting Finaxtra? Why is Quant highlighting their competition? Oh no. We never went this far back, did we? But again, in the payment report, Gaining Ground in Global Interoperability this year's report included some insights. BNY Mellon, Deutsche Bank, HSBC. You can read the full report, and I did. But I froze it on this part for you guys because it says 18 is the number of chapters in Finaxtra's Future of Payments report. Why in the world would Quant go in and highlight that? Last I checked, competitors don't really want to highlight their competition unless, if anything, they're working with their competition. And more importantly, what do you also see here? You see here, I know this is not Finaxtra, but back to UDPN, Universal Payments, or Universal Digital Payments Network, UDPN, as we know, underpinned a messaging backbone focused on providing interoperability. And more importantly, what does it also say? representatives from leading global financial institutions, Deutsche Bank, HSBC. See how it all matches up? Yeah. But basically speaking, they realize the importance of interoperability. Of course they do. And they always will. And more importantly, I keep saying that a lot, but it is more importantly, recognize another citation. ubitech.eu states plain as day, if you were to go here, that you have to have standardization. Okay? And what's the only one they show? They don't mention the whole thing of Finaxtra. They don't mention the whole thing of UDPN. They don't mention the whole thing of 6 Digital Exchange, do they? But the thing they mention in their research is plain as day. And that's ISO TC 307. And if you think about it, what does it also say? Working Group 3 is basically for smart contracts and their applications. Particular focus is given on activities on trust anchors. Here's your Stellar plug, right? For DLT-based identity management. If you haven't seen, even if you don't like Stellar, watch the video, because Jed McCaleb literally mentions over and over the need for interoperability layer, and he talks specifically about trust anchors. Boom, there's your boil it, mash it, stick it in the stew moment. And of course, here's another one, back to Cyprus, like I mentioned before, participating member. And at the end of the day, that's where it's at. And that's where it will always be at for me. So moving forward, I think we should all look at Quant, literally, as they are truly the next era of Treasury for digital money. Thanks for staying the course. If you listen to this particular outline, simply do me a favor. Type into the comments Treasury, and I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. Know what you have. Know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. Thanks for tuning in. And you all have a blessed weekend. We'll see you on the next one.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.